Okay, let's get started. Good evening, everybody. I'm Althea, and I'm hosting this evening's Tools and Techniques session with Larissa, who volunteers with me at the IIBA Cape Town chapter. We're really excited to have you all here tonight with our speaker, Bonny Matlala. He will be taking you through some awesome tips and tricks for collaborating to solve business problems. Before I tell you a bit about Bonny and get him started, let me tell you a bit about the IIBA Cape Town chapter. We host a number of events throughout the year. One of them is the Tools and Techniques Thursday. Please check out the website, IIBA Cape Town, just Google that, and you'll find all of our events listed there. You can also follow us on socials, LinkedIn, Twitter, and find notifications for our events over there. So to make this evening session enjoyable for everybody and so that we all get the best value out of it, I'm going to ask you guys to try and follow the following ground rules. Please stay on mute throughout the talk unless you are cleared to talk. Bonny will take us through his talk. It's about 20 to 25 minutes long. Thereafter, we'll have some Q&A. We'll open the floor and we'll let you guys jump in and discuss some of the pointers shared by Bonny tonight. You can post your questions in the main chat and we'll read them later on when we get to Q&A time. All the presentations will be uploaded to the IIBA SA YouTube page, and we'll share those links for you in the chat as well. Unfortunately, we do not send out the presentation deck after the call, so you can definitely find the presentation on YouTube. We'll tell you a bit more about becoming a member at the IIBA a little bit later, but we'll also post some links in the chat for you. So you can become a member, but you can also become a volunteer. And we are very keen to see and welcome new speakers into the chapter. So we'll post all of those links throughout the call in the chat. And of course, if there's any questions, you can always reach out to us. All right, thank you for joining us this evening. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about Bonny. Bonny is a business analyst, but he's also a keynote speaker and an MC. So we're really keen to have him here and share some of those tips and tricks that he's learned along the way. He's an exciting young dynamic speaker. He leaves his audience always wanting more, and he's well-researched and he always shares relevant content. Bonny has served as the Soweto Positive Speakers Club, a Toastmasters Club president from June 2018 to June 2019. He's currently an area director for Area S2 in District 74 Toastmasters. That's a lot of words. And I'm sure Bonny's going to show off his skill this evening. In 2017, he was honored as the best vice president of education in Toastmasters Division S. In addition to being a Toastmaster, he's also gained experience working as a business analyst in three of the biggest banks in South Africa. And he holds a BCom in law and LLB degree from UNISA, as well as a business analysis certificate from Rhodes. Bonny, I'm excited to get you started. So the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Larissa, and good evening to everyone. Thank you for this beautiful opportunity to your beautiful organization for making this possible for us to come through and to have this micro masterclass and to share our skills and what we've gained over a period of time. Ladies and gentlemen, today I'll be speaking about the role of a business analyst from a business perspective, a business BA. Today my talk will be about how we can best collaborate to solve business problems. In the olden days, they used to say we are the bridge between IT and business, but we need to now move to that, from that thinking to a more collaborative approach. To collaborate, to become an alliance, to become a partner, and to become a team player, which is what we need in these current times. So without wasting time, I am going to take you through the process of what a business analyst needs to do from the moment he receives a business need to say, for example, we want to offer a credit on our online banking or on our banking application. What a business analyst needs to do from receiving that kind of request. What are the steps that he needs to do? What does he need to do to ensure that he arrives at the solution? And I am hoping that you will find it more valuable. It will change the way you work. To our distinguished guests who are not working as BAs, I believe some of the techniques will be valuable to you in terms of approach. And I believe this will be worthwhile for you. And thank you for joining us. Without wasting time, I've got 30 minutes and I'm going to do my best to deliver what I need to deliver within the allocated time. Now, the first step is how do we start a business process, a business, sorry about that. How do we start? How does a project start? Normally, a product owner will come and say to you, I've got this beautiful idea. I want to, for example, I want to offer a credit on online banking or on our banking app. It's just a big idea of what this individual wants to achieve. The question is, how do we as BAs then come into the picture? We come into the picture, our role is to break down the need, this big need, to say, for us to achieve this big need, which is to offer credit online or on our banking application, what do we need to do? Our role is then to break down this big need into manageable chunks. For example, we will speak about the ability for ourselves to be able to log on to the online platform, to click on approve, to upload documents, and all of those things. So how do we then get into it? The first thing we need to understand is that we need to break this into manageable chunks. Now, what do we do? A product owner has come to you and say to you, we want to become better. We want to make sure that we achieve the best that we can in the market. As a business analyst trying to resolve this problem, what do you need to do? I have seen a lot of people trying to delve into requirements. I will suggest, and today in this micro masterclass, I want to suggest the following. Before you embark on solving the problem, understand the background. What led us to having these challenges and issues? You can look at the communication between the CFO, between stakeholders. You can ask, was the business case done for this? If it was, you can request, can I have the business case? Read through it. There might be emails detailing the problems before you even came into the picture. Ask for these documents. Can I see the documents detailing this problem? And you can do this in collaboration with your product owner to say, please tell me what I need to be aware of. Get the background of what is it that you are trying to resolve. When you have done this, you are ready to say, now that I understand what led to us doing this or trying to solve this as a business, you need to understand, who do I need in this process to be successful? Who do I need to speak with in order to ensure that I deliver value? Identify the stakeholders. Ask the person who came with the project, the requester, and say, can you assist me to look at who might be impacted? In my experience working in banks, I've seen that a simple project can have ripple effect. We might be talking about just enhancing a credit application on our online platform, digital platforms. But we might find that we need to look at terms and conditions. We need to look at marketing after we have enabled that feature on our banking platform. We might need to tell the world that, hey guys, we've got this exciting product. So by identifying who you need for the problem, you are developing a team that you'll collaborate with, that you'll share value with, to say, how do we move from this point to another point? In a business analyst space or circles, it's called stakeholder analysis. Analyze who you need for your project. Once you know who you need for your project, it's going to be important for you to ensure that you ask how it looks today. Try to map the as is. I always say, try to understand the problem. You know the background, you know who you need to speak with. The issue is, now you need to understand the problem that you're trying to fix. The best way to do this is to ask the question, how does the problem look like today? How are we doing it today? What led to this problem? The one thing that I tend to use is process flows. I then write a process flow about what needs to be done. I write a process flow about how the problem looks like. Oh, today the customers go inside the branch, they have to queue for a long time. It's causing frustration. We have to print this paper. We have to do this. We have to enter into 10 different systems before we can get to where we want. Draw the process. Once you've got the process of the problem, walk through the process with the person who asked for the changes, the stakeholder or your request, and say, this is my understanding of the problem. Is this what you meant when you said you've got problem B? And that is a good way of collaborating and making sure that you both understand what needs to be done. I always say, when people have issues, for example, I have seen on TV and when you look around, people who are addicts, they are made to stand up to say, for example, I'll make an example with myself because it's not a nice example. They're made to stand up. If I was an alcoholic, I'll be made to stand up to say, hello, my name is Bonny Matlala and I'm an alcoholic. Why is that important? It's important because before you solve the problem, you have to admit there's a problem, or you have to at least have a little bit of appreciation of the problem. So this exercise of understanding the as is for the BA to be abreast with the problem, to understand that there is a problem, to know where the issue is, because come to think of it, you cannot solve what you don't know. If there's no problem, you cannot solve it. So before you even attempt to deal with a business problem in a collaboration process, you have to understand the problem. And the SE is just a business analyst saying, I want to understand the issue. I want to understand the problem that we are dealing with with this project. And then, of course, keep asking the question, what will happen if things stay the way they are today? When you ask a stakeholder this question, what will happen if we do not change? You're triggering something, you're triggering more information to come your way. Once you have understood the as is, it is now time to write requirements. So when you write requirements, there'll be what we call a requirements workshop, where you'll have a meeting, bring every stakeholder into the meeting and try and unpack the issues in the meeting. I want to give tips about what you should be doing before you get into the workshop. There's things that you should be doing before you get to the workshop, and things you should be doing when you are in the actual workshop. And there are things that you should be doing as an analyst after you have had your sessions. So you prepare meetings, you do something in meetings, and you do something after the meetings have been completed. One of the things that you need to do when preparing for this workshop is to prepare an agenda. This looks like a very simple thing to do, but I've been in meetings where there's just no direction. People are just talking about everything that comes to their mind. So for you to make sure that you gear the meeting for what you want to talk about, prepare the agenda. What are you going to talk about? This helps you nudge your stakeholders to say, guys, we cannot be talking about this. We need to talk about that. Before the meeting, send out a draft document. Now you understand what the problem looks like. You can think of what the solution can look like, or you can make recommendations. They don't have to be perfect. Send them out before the meeting. Also, send questions out to your stakeholders. People tend to take this, BAs tend to take this for granted, but this helps your audience to think about the problem. So when coming to the time of the meeting, they've thought about your problem, they've thought about your questions, they are ready to engage. And in that way, you are able to deliver value quicker in a very agile manner and very fast. So send out questions that you may have to them, thoughts, ideas about what you think the problem can be, how the problem can be solved, send it out to them. So, and after you do that, ensure that you have everyone that you need for the meeting. It's pointless to have a meeting to say, actually, we cannot continue because we needed Bonny Matlala to be part of this and he's not available. Now that you know what to do before you start the session, now you have prepared for the session, you have sent out everything that needs to be sent out. You are in the session, you are eliciting requirements. You are trying to get your requirements for solving the problem. The first thing that you need to do, stick to your agenda. It's quite simple, but stick to your agenda. It's easy to be distracted by a lot of things. Make sure that you stick to your agenda. Diaries are very full. People have a lot to do. So the best you can do is to stick to your agenda. In the session, use your process diagram. Your process flows. A picture tells 1,000 words. It's much easier to interrogate a picture than to go through a 50-page document. So use your flows to say, this is what it looks like. This is the first activity. This is what happens in the branch. And this is what we want to do online to make the customer experience better. When you are in the session, do not become the boss. You are the facilitator. Your role is to ensure that ideas are flowing and there's engagement and to eliminate all distractions. So make sure that you're facilitating the process. You're not bossing the people around. As a facilitator, you must be a great listener. A lot of things will be said, some of them relevant, others not relevant, but you need to be able to listen quite well. And of course, listen actively, nod, show that you are engaged, you are listening to people. People love to be listened to. As business analysts, we must navigate characters and we must be in such a manner that people are able to offload and be able to share ideas. As we engage them and ask them questions about how the solution must look like, what do they want, how the problem to be solved as we get to the requirements. In the session, of course, make sure that your questions are ready. Make sure that you're ready to ask your questions. You should not be thinking about questions when you're in the session. You should be asking questions because you're prepared for this session. Some of the questions that I have, it's a question that I've alluded to. What will happen if we don't change? Who do you think is impacted? If we solve this problem, how will the solution look like? You're trying to understand what your stakeholders have in mind, because remember, they came to you with a problem and you want to resolve the problem. Once you have done that, you are now ready to do what you need to do after the workshop. Now let's get to what you do after the workshop. After the workshop, you have prepared, you have sat with your stakeholders, you have had their concerns, you have thought about the problem, you have brainstormed the problem, you have had their suggestion to say, this is what we need to do. We need a customer to be able, for example, to upload documents on our digital platforms. We want to engage with the customer to ensure that if you uploaded a wrong document, we can say this document is not in the right format or it's not the document that we want. Once that you understand that, you are ready to write your requirements. You know the background. You know what the issue is about. You've sat with your stakeholders. How do you then write your requirements? There's a lot of acronyms that I use to help us write requirements. But TCAF is one that stands out for me. And there's Invest, there's a lot of them that you can try and look at to ensure that your requirements are complete. The first T speaks your requirements being testable, right? Your requirements must be testable for your stakeholders. So when you write requirements, think, are they testable? Can we test this requirement? Do we know how we'll be sure that the requirement has been fulfilled? When you write requirements, ensure that they're understandable. Avoid being ambiguous. An ambiguous requirement might be to say, when a customer makes a payment, after completing a payment, we want an email notification to be sent to him with information. This is ununderstandable and not clear and not concise and not ambiguous, because it does not tell what kind of information do you want the customer to receive. A good requirement might be to say, an understandable and a clear requirement might say that when a customer makes an application, so when a customer makes a payment, we want, after the payment has been successful, we want the system to send a notification with the payee's information, the payer's information, the amount, the date, and the fact that it has been successful. This is being concise and being precise. We can test this requirement because we know what kind of information we want to send to the client. And of course, then I'll move to common problems or mistakes that we tend to do as business analysts. When we write requirements as business analysts, we tend to do a number of mistakes. Remember, I am talking about a business BA, a BA that's writing requirements after interacting with business. I find that we tend to make mistakes where we want to write implementation. We want to write how. Ours is not to write how. We need to detail the problem. As a business BA, what you need to do is to define the problem, to say, this is the problem and this is what we want. When the problem, this is the problem. When a problem is resolved, this is how the problem will look like. That's how you write a requirement. Try not to focus on the how of that. A functional FSD or more technical document will address the how. What you need to do is to make sure that you write the what. Don't worry too much about technical limitations, because as business analysts who are close to business, business is always dreaming. It's always trying to come up with exciting things. So we should not be thinking of system limitation. We should be thinking of bettering the client's experience, conquering the market. So we should be focused on detailing the problems and not worry too much about the how of how it will be generated or how it will work, and leave that to system designer or the guys writing more technical documents. I believe my colleagues who will come after me will then elaborate on this point, or on how what goes into this document and what are the things that you need to look at. Time does not permit, of course, for me to delve into this too technical documents. Once you are done with that, I want to now share with you example of good requirements. Of course, a bad requirement is a requirement that says we want to send an email notification with relevant information. This doesn't say, it's not clear. It doesn't say what kind of information do you want to send. What is relevant to you might not be relevant to me. So we need to be concise. You know, when we write requirement, we must say we want to send an email notification with the amount. We have to send an email notification that has the following information: amount, the date, the payee, you know, the identifying number or whatever identifier that it is. Therefore, when writing like that, we are clear about what we want, and we are able to then communicate this to IT stakeholders. Now that we have touched on how to write requirements, what to do, how to think about this, the process that goes into it, and what to do, I want to then talk about what is important for a business analyst to do, which is presenting these requirements to IT stakeholders. Once you have written these requirements, you become the custodian of these requirements. You now become the mouthpiece of business as you take these requirements to different dev teams or development teams, or technical teams who will be ensuring that these requirements are fulfilled. You are becoming the mouthpiece of business. Therefore, it's important that you are able to communicate this with great persuasion, or you become very persuasive in terms of speaking about those requirements. Remember what we're doing here. We are collaborating. Collaboration means that we become an alliance of business. We become team players. So now that you've got those requirements, you want to communicate this requirements effectively. You want to be a representative of this requirement. And I want to talk about how do you then present this, how to get that presentation mastery in terms of presenting this requirement. Of course, just before I get into that, at some stage you need to speak about requirements change management. Otherwise, the requirements will keep changing. You need to say to your business, this is how we're going to handle changes. If you change your mind, we're going to allow changes until a certain point, and at some stage we're going to close the gate and say we're no longer accepting new requirements. But this is done through a communication plan so that no one frowns upon you when you push back in terms of requirements. Now, you've got your requirements, they've been signed off. Now you're taking these requirements to your different stakeholders. How do you then present these requirements? I want to share with you tips that I've learned over the years and over time in terms of how do you share your requirements that you've written. The very important thing is read your document, know your document inside out. I have seen in my experience and with other business analysts, if you're working on about 5 projects, you sometimes get asked a question around your document. You find that you've written 5 documents and you're presenting 1 document, and you're taking to page 5 of your document to say, on page 5, you have said 1, 2, 3, and you find that you cannot remember. So it's quite embarrassing for a BA to find himself in such a wanting position. So whenever you go to meetings, make sure that you've read your document inside out. Every comma, every full stop, every requirement, you should be able to articulate with great confidence. Number 2, be able to speak about your requirement in summary. You could have heard when I started, I said, I am going to speak about a BA, that is a business BA. I'm going to talk about what happens when you receive a requirement, what happens, what you need to do, when you are in session, what you need to do after that, what you need to do post that, how you need to write requirements, and how you need to present requirements. That's a summary of what I'm doing today. So even in terms of your document, you need to be able to summarize your document, just in case you are called upon to summarize your document. Know your audience. I always say it's important to know your audience. Whether you are speaking with them for the first time, you can even go as far as checking them on LinkedIn. Know a lot about them. Know what triggers them. What kind of people are they? This will help you to understand the kind of questions that you will expect. If there will be some kind of hostility that you will receive, you'll be able to navigate because you know your audience. Number two, understand technology. I have seen, especially with in time of sharing on presenting on Teams and on Zoom, speakers struggling to share documents, having to ask their audience, how do I share these documents? Small things that really throw you off. Make sure that you understand your technology and make sure that you are prepared. Test your audio. Small things. Sometimes you've got a great presentation, great requirements, but you cannot communicate it because the tools are just failing you. If you find yourself speaking, if we go back to the old usual, we go back to the office and we present in physical meetings, just be careful of your hand gestures. I've seen people who don't even know what their hands are doing. Make sure that everything that you do when presenting requirement matches what you're trying to say. Be careful of your body movements, your hands gestures. Move your hands with purpose. Don't just move your hands haphazardly and be all over the place. Everything that you do must be well calculated to fit your message. Because remember, you've got a goal to communicate a requirement or requirements. So just be careful of the way you speak. Of course, be careful of your pace. Be careful of the manner that you speak, your face, be relaxed. And if you feel that you are a little bit uncomfortable, maybe you've been rushed to write a requirement, what I tend to do, take your product owner with you and say, you know what, I'm going to present this. Come with me to support me, because there might be a question that probably you don't know how to answer, but because your product owner is close to the product or to the process, can help you. Remember, we are not competing against each other. We are trying to coexist and collaborate to solve this business problems. So with that, I think my time has expired. Thank you for listening. I am going to hand over to my colleague, Larissa, to allow a few questions and see if we might be able to answer those questions. Larissa?
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Bonny. That was such a good presentation. Really, your skills from Toastmasters really shining through there. I see you just moving back to the front. Thanks. Cool. So yeah, I really enjoyed that. I think for me, what stood out the most was just the practicality of the content. I mean, I could really relate to most points which you highlighted. And especially the point around knowing the background and understanding the problem itself. I think that really stood out for me, as well as the fact that you should know your document and, try and always have context of all the documentation you've written, because we could be asked at any time, to sort of explain requirements we've written in the past. So Bonny, the chat has been on fire. You've got quite a few of our attendees asking you questions. So I'll ask the first question, which is from Kolile. I hope I've pronounced your name correctly. And Kolile has asked, how do you manage to get more out of these stakeholders who are usually competitors? So sometimes you need detail on a common problem, and we find that these stakeholders are sometimes in fear, or they push back in giving away their competitive advantage, which is sometimes what we need quite desperately, which Kolile says is quite sad in this age of collaboration. So Bonny, how do you suggest we sort of get more out of these types of stakeholders?
Thank you, Larissa and Kolile. I think that's a very good question. Of course, it's quite difficult for some stakeholders to give information. I found where we are automating things. Some stakeholders who are maybe users who become part of the process, they sometimes feel that we are putting their jobs on the line and they're going to lose their jobs. So I think it's critical that we really assure these stakeholders that we mean good and we're trying to solve a business problem. One of the ways to do this is to, listen to them. It's quite important to listen to people vent in meeting, to show that you sometimes you don't necessarily agree with them, but you gotta show them that you are listening. Because, when people feel like you care about them, whatever you say, even though it's a little bit difficult to take in, they tend to be more receptive. So I would say one of the things that you need to do is to show value why you are doing this, is to show that it's for common good, is to allow them to vent, And sometimes I find that, especially when you're in a physical setup, after the meeting and everything, walking to someone's desk and saying, I could see that you're a bit unsettled about this point, what is bothering you? I feel like you hit home, and you create a connection, because in meetings, there's a lot that happens and people are sometimes acting, but when you go to that desk and you say, what can we do to make it better? I see that you're worried about this. You really get to connect with the person at a personal level, and you win yourself an ally. I've seen that work in my experience.
Thanks, Bonny. Cordelia, I hope Bonny's answered your question. I believe he has done a great job. We must always remember to sort of always be our authentic selves, and don't be afraid to sort of just go have a conversation with your stakeholders, as Bonny's explained. Cordelia, I'm just going to unmute you quickly if you have any other questions, or if you want to elaborate, or just thank Bonny.
Hi everyone. No, thanks Bonny for those insights. Yeah, I'm really happy with your answer. But not to waste everyone's time, another follow-up question was just to say, in this setup of the online meetings and all those things, because as BAs, in the physical setup, we sort of use the body language and, to get feedback from stakeholders. How do you manage in this current setup of, online, especially since most people's videos, are off, and like now when you are giving a presentation, surely you are not getting any feedback from us as you are speaking. So I would just like to know what are the tricks that you use to sort of, get that feedback. Thanks.
Yeah. So I think I'll answer the question twofold. As a follow-up, you of course you can't go to. I'll talk about how I try and manage that from a speaker point of view, and back to your question to say, how do you then know how? For example, you can't go to someone's desk and have a chat with them, and what kind of language do you use to try and connect with them? Because now we are in a, almost like a virtual era. I think what tends to happen, what I use is more vocabulary. I think vocabulary it's a powerful tool, because the selection of words, when you say someone, sometimes when you use words like you must not, or for example, you say what you did was wrong. Even though you want to say someone was wrong, you can say it in a more polite manner to say, I think it could have been more prudent or better if you have taken this approach, because this and that could have happened and you could have gotten a proper response. So if people don't know you and then your vocab is just way you know out of line and it comes across as intimidating, as arrogant, even though that's not what you meant, but that's how people will paint you. So when I engage with stakeholders, I do call them one-on-one if maybe I find that they're problematic. And, I skillfully choose my words, if I don't want to say, don't do that, I'll say, rather, it would be better if we try this way. I will suggest this, So I'm so careful in my vocabulary that I use, and that helps me. So in terms of how do I try and connect with my audience from a virtual stage like this one, I have to admit, because I'm not even seeing the chats from where I am, so I have to admit that it's quite difficult, but I believe that by respecting my audience and by creating thoroughly and going through what I'm going to present, and by making sure that I know my story, like today, going through everything over and over again, practicing it and memorizing it. I believe that when I give my talk, it will come across that this guy has quite prepared. And I believe if people feel that I've prepared for this session and I know what I'm talking about, then there is no way that I cannot connect with them. Connection is certain, even though I cannot see it. But if I have delivered what is well researched, people will feel it because it's authentic. So that's how I try to kind of navigate those challenges.
Thanks, Bonny. Thanks for a great presentation. Thanks.
Pleasure. Thank you, Lile.
Thanks, Lile. Our next question is from Fatuani. And Fatuani is asking a very good question. So how do you navigate issues of trying not to focus on technical requirements? For example, if you're on a data analytics project, which is, I think, a position where a lot of us find ourselves these days, and sort of your background is business BA, and you're there to deliver, you know, as a business BA, but you're placed in this technical project. How do you sort of stick to business requirements when you're just overloaded with technical jargon throughout the day?
Yeah, so first, Fatwan, I have to admit that it's quite a challenging thing to do because sometimes we find ourselves thinking too much about the technical aspect of the problem, which is necessarily the solution. So I think we should be insisting on saying that, you know what, we want to detail the problem. You know, I always say that, you know, when you go and take your car to the garage, for service, they always tell you to sit on the other side. You know, you have to say, I want a service for my car. I want my car to perform like this and that and that and that and that and that. And you sort of have to give space to the technical guys. But if you have not detailed the problem, people might be doing well alignment, you know, on a car that needs service. So I will always say, try your best to persuade your stakeholder to say, you know what, my aim here is to speak about the problem. My aim is to say, this is the problem, and when this is completed, this is how it's going to look like. So I always try and educate. I think more important is for you to try and educate, you know, and try to get your manager to be on your side when you try and educate, to say, guys, this is what I need to focus on. Otherwise, we're not going to get it right, because I believe good requirements are more important than technical solution. I say that with caution, because they're the heart of the project. If you get your requirements wrong, really your solution will be something of a disaster.
What a great analogy of the mechanic and the requirements, Bonny.
Thank you.
I was also just going to mention that. And thanks for that response, Bonny. I'm going to unmute Fatuani now just for follow-up, if Fatuani wants to maybe just comment on your response.
Okay, cool.
Hi guys, and thank you, Bonny, for that response. Yeah, so the follow-up question is, I think it's something that maybe most of you would have experienced it a lot, especially lately with data analytics projects, is you get into an environment where they will say, we already know the problem, kind of thing. The business knows the problem, and the technical side has this view of, we understand the problem, but we want you as the BA to give us requirements that also speak our language, because we know what the problem is. And if you keep giving us the business problem expression, you're repeating to what we already know. And then you get into this battle of, okay, the business says, okay, you're articulating enough, we can sign off. But then there's always a technical middle in the side that says, but I'm not going to sign this off because it's not sufficient enough in our language of understanding. And it goes back to that opening you had when you say collaborating more than being a bridge, because then that aspect of being a bridge comes back. So just a follow-up with that, around that, in terms of the strategy around negotiating such instances.
Yeah, thank you, Fatwani. I think the most important thing around that is to try and bring your business in, because at the end of the day, you do find projects where business will say, we know what the problem is, and we just want to document, you know. But what I've seen is that as a BA writing this requirement, there's just a whole lot of things to think about, you know. As I've alluded to, you know, I'll speak about what I know, you know, as I've made an example about putting credit on online banking. There's a lot of things to think about, you know. There's stuff like, you know, uploading documents. What if you upload a wrong document? Turnaround times, things like, you know, things that normally business will not really think about. You know, I've seen in my experience that business will think they've got requirements. And, you know, I spoke about bad requirements where a business person might say, we just want to send the payment information to someone who've just made a payment. And you find that they don't really drill down to the nitty-gritties of it. What must it contain, you know? When must it be sent? What must happen when the number captured on the system or the email captured is incorrect? You know, what are the steps, you know? And also, there's a lot of things that goes into it. I think my experience is that when businesses want to launch something, they just want to quickly take it to market. But there's a lot of things. I mean, there's reputational risk, you know, that can come into play. There is legal and compliance things that need to be done. So I think more important, we do something that business does not really like. We tend to slow them down and say, did we think about this? And I think our role as business analysts is to really be those guys, you know. And I always say the role of, sometimes when a business analyst is there, you don't see the value. But when you remove the analyst, you see the value, because once you launch, then you realize that actually we did not think about, we just created a suspense status, for example, but we don't send a customer message to say your contract is suspended. This is what you need to do. So I think we need to continue doing that. It's quite annoying, but sometimes the value will be seen long after the project has been locked. So I think it's one of the things that it's a continuous kind of a battle that we're trying to navigate. But I'll say we need to continue slowing business down and say, did we think about this? Did we think about that and that? I think that's our role.
Thank you, man.
Thank you for that question, Fatwani.
Thanks, Fatwani. That was a really good discussion there. We've got time for just one more question, and our president, Edward, has a question for you, Bonny. So, Edward, I'm going to just unmute your mic, or you can just go ahead. I see you've got rights there. All right.
Thank you, Lisa. Good evening, everyone. Bonny, thank you very much for the presentation. I do have a question and a comment. It's actually two. I didn't want to speak, but maybe just allow me to elaborate. Just want to clarify this issue of the how that you mentioned, because I think there's a great misunderstanding of the how and the involvement of a BA in the how. There's always the understanding of the involvement of the BA in the what, which is what you pointed out correctly. But there's also the space of the BA to be involved in the how. There are two levels of how. There is the how in terms of the functional. I have this need, which is developing this product. So I want my customers to be able to apply for a loan online. That is my need. But I also have, because I understand my customers, so I want it to be designed in the sense that it has the navigation buttons on the right or on the left. And I also want them to complete maybe the name, surname, ID, and I want the sequence to be as follows, because it's easier for my customers from a usability perspective. And I also want, maybe I have an ID number, and I want it to be validated or I want when I define my data, because I know my customers, this should be an alphanumeric field, for an example, because I know that in this piece of data, they'll enter name, or they'll enter the name and the number, whatever the case may be. So the how that you're alluding to or referring to, where it's not really the place of the BAs, is the implementation layer, which goes to the system design itself, which goes to where the technical specification gets in, where you find your systems analyst play a role, or the solutions architect, or even the developers, depending on the organization, where they start now designing, whether they have methods that they will reuse, or they'll build new methods, whether they'll write new microservices, or whether they'll build a new database, and whether it's going to be a relational database, or is it going to be a distributed database, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That is definitely, you're right. That is the technical lay of the land, which is at a very low level that we as BAs don't necessarily have to play into. However, at a functional level, which is a use case level, that details the how. We need to specify, for an example, when we talk about the user roles, who are these user roles, how they should access the system. When we talk about the non-functional requirements, where you say how the system should validate. And for example, when we talk about validation of the rules, the business rules, you're talking about the how. To say, for this field, validate it in this way and throw in this exception. Okay, throw in the message, of course. I mean, at the back end, it will be an exception, but at the front end, it will be a message, which must be customer friendly. So I don't know whether I'm making sense, but I think we must be very careful around that's why I'm saying there are two levels of how, and the BAs must be involved in the how that is facing the user. And then there's a
certainly.
how. Yes, the how, that's the back end, which is the system.
Certainly. Of course, Edward, I think you have summed it quite nicely there to say there will be that involvement from the BA to, I mean, the rules, I think the rules around that must be well articulated. I mean, speaking about those, whether it's alphanumeric or not, what can go into the ID. For example, you can't put alphabets in South Africa for an ID. That much a BA must get into defining, but in terms of the coding and the back end and the mechanical, I don't know how to put it, the as you've said, the inner workings of a system will then be a different kind of a how. But I agree with you fully.
Absolutely.
And thank you for clearing that.
Okay.
That's what I wanted to articulate, but I think you have. When I had president, I knew that something, nuggets of wisdom were coming through. It was well articulated.
I plan to just listen, but I felt that chip in here.
I think that's a great point. It clarifies, and I agree with it.
Thank you.
Rules must be specified, but the inner working of the system must be kind of taken back.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Great. All right, so we've reached the end of this evening's Tools and Techniques session. Thank you to everybody that joined this evening, and thanks to the attendees that posted some very good questions. And most of all, thank you, Bonny, for offering to share your wisdom, your knowledge, and your experience as being a business BA yourself.
Thank you for the opportunity.
And Alfie has also just put up some more information for the audience to get access to this presentation. After this evening, we will be posting it up on our YouTube channel. If you'd like to become a member, please do contact us at capetown@southafrica.iba.org. And also please keep an eye out on our LinkedIn channel for the next Tools and Techniques session. Thank you very much, everybody, and hope you have a wonderful evening further.
Thank you. Thanks, Bonny.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for the opportunity.